Jim Daly was elected to Dáil Éireann in 2011 after giving 7 years as a busy county councillor representing the people of West Cork. When Jim was elected to the Dáil, he immediately focused on assisting constituents who'd lost their job and were unemployed at the time. This was one of the most prevalent queries that arose in Jim's weekly clinics at the time. For many years, Jim has been proposing the Gateway scheme.
I'm joined now by TD Jim Daly, who first came up with this idea 4 years ago. Jim, I'm going to come to you first.
Well, it's first of all, it's not right to say you're working for €1 an hour. If somebody works in the Gateway scheme, they'll work 19 and a half hours for €208 minimum,
which would allow unemployed people to work with Cork County Council on a part-time basis. He is delighted to have achieved this concept in full, and there are now over 200 people working with Cork County Council, and many of them have been awarded employment contracts. Also, Jim set up the West Cork Jobs Initiative, which was a gathering of 12 of the leading employers in the West Cork area. This committee produced a comprehensive proposal of specific issues which were affecting job creation in West Cork and presented the proposal to the Minister for Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation, Mr Richard Bruton. As Vice Chair of the Oireachtas Social Protection Committee, Jim was instrumental in lobbying Minister Bruton for some time to bring in a scheme that would reimburse employers for taking on people who are unemployed. This scheme also came to fruition in 2013 and is known as the Jobs Plus scheme, which gives an employer €10,000 in cash for hiring an unemployed person. When the job situation in West Cork began to stabilise, Jim refocused his energy on something that has been very dear to him for many years. As the former head of Clonakilty Chamber of Tourism, Jim has always been proactive in advocating for the introduction of new measures to attract overseas visitors to West Cork. The main issue which Jim focused on was the development of outdoor pursuits which could be enjoyed by local people who clearly love to walk, run, cycle and swim along with the overseas visitors. The strategy was to focus on the development of new walking trails, greenways, blueways and cycle paths. The net result of a series of public meetings for Jim was to focus on establishing a walking trail from Cork Airport to Maidenhead. This would be done by joining up with many of the existing tracks to form one macro product that could be advertised and sold abroad to bring people to West Cork.
I'm not at all surprised to hear of the interest that there was within us, within the Clonakilty community and within your constituency. Because the rollout of these greenways across the country have been hugely successful.
This project is currently being headed up by the Chief Executive Officer of Cork County Council, who's now accepted the principle of the idea as being very positive for West Cork. His officials are now working with the Department of Transport and Tourism to progress the project.
What you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And, we cannot kick the ball or the can any further down the road in this debate. I'm 3 years raising this issue and issues related to roads since I came into this house back in March 2011, and constantly being pushed from Billy to Jack, from department to department, to local authority or whatever. But I think it's high time that we had a fresh look at how we deal with our roads.
Jim has, for many years, been looking for a different approach to the maintenance of our roads. He has consistently advocated for a full-time crew consisting of a mini digger, a dumper and a hedge cutter to be deployed to the regional roads in County Cork. This can be done for €1.4 million per annum, which is just 1% of the annual road budget. County Cork are very supportive of the proposal, but currently trade unions are objecting to the plan as they say it is taking the work off their members. This is of course not the case, as the drains of our regional roads have not been cleaned for over 20 years. Jim is clear that he will succeed with this proposal and will not rest until he does. From national politics point of view and a legislative point of view, Jim has focused much of his energy on improving the education system for our children. He has introduced 2 new laws in Dáil Éireann in relation to establishing an ombudsman for education. It is entirely unacceptable, in Jim's view, that there is no appeal avenue available to question a school board's decision that affects parents who hand over their most precious resource, their children, every day of the week to care and protect for them. Jim has also been pressing the Minister for Education to end the so-called voluntary contributions that are requested of parents by school authorities to educate their children. Children of the country are entitled to free education under constitutional law, and no parent should feel under pressure to come up with sums of money for children every September to pay for education which they are entitled to free of charge. Jim has done extensive work on the whole mortgage arrears issue by trying to progress sensible solutions for customers in arrears. There must be options available to people to park a portion of their debt for a long-term interest, free to be reviewed at a point in the future. Jim repeatedly makes the point that no bank can repossess a person's home. It is only the courts that can carry out this function, and they do so only in extreme circumstances. One of Jim's proudest achievements was the leading role he played in the successful passing of the children's referendum, asked by the Taoiseach and the then Minister for Children, Francis Fitzgerald, to lead the party's media campaign, a role he relished in advocating the case for increased rights for some of the most vulnerable children who are not fortunate enough to live in their own home. These are just a few of the bigger issues Jim has been working on. Along with these, he has of course been extremely busy working the constituency with weekly clinics in both his Clonakilty and his Bandon offices. He also does monthly clinics every first Friday in various areas around the constituency, spanning from Kinsale to Skibbereen and all in between. It is these invaluable clinics that keep Jim grounded and in touch with the people's view in West Cork. It also allows him to represent them in Dáil Éireann and raise many of the issues with the relevant ministers. Jim Daly is an extremely hard-working and is a straight-talking politician. People don't always like what Jim has to say, but Jim believes in saying it as it is and being honest with the people. There is no job too big or too small for Jim. He has been singled out by the national media as an able, articulate national parliamentarian who the people of West Cork should be proud of. The last 4 years have been difficult as limited money was available for capital spending by the government. Notwithstanding this, Cork South West has done well from the current government and has actually received substantial funding for various projects like roads, schools, sports and tourism. We need to send the message out that in order to secure the economic recovery, we must ensure Fine Gael receive a second term in office and give them an actual opportunity to govern. The last 4.5 years was always and ever only about rescuing the country from the mismanagement of the previous administration.
Good evening to everyone in Clonakilty and to Cork South West. My apologies for not being with you tonight, but I particularly wanted to send a short message just to express my support and my appreciation for Jim Daly. He's been a really good colleague for the last couple of years, and he's one of those unusual TDs who's willing to take tough decisions and make tough calls and say things that maybe people don't necessarily want to hear but are right to say, and that's something that I really respect in politicians. I'm also a little bit concerned about the amount of weight he's lost in the last little while, and I'm really worried that people mightn't recognise him when he calls at their doorsteps. So that's why we're relying on you to make sure that everyone remembers Jim Daly and recognises the excellent work that he's done in the last couple of years and puts him back in the Dáil. And so I want to wish both Jim Daly and Noel Harrington the very best in the forthcoming general election. Cork South West is a crucial constituency. We need to hold the 2 seats there. I know we can do it. Have a good evening.